Grace and peace. Welcome to another episode of the TBT Show. I'm Anthony Moten. My partner in crime, as always, is Sean P. Aguilar. I'm super excited about today. We have a very special guest. He plays a lot of roles in my life, and we'll get to it. But he's an alumni of Texas Southern University. Has served our community as pastor for years. He's the newly elected pastor of the Lyons Unity Church, historic church in Northeast Houston. And so I want to introduce to us today our very special in-studio guest, Pastor Delwin E. Benton. Benton, how are you today, man?
I'm wonderful, man. How you doing? How both of you guys doing?
Good.
Yeah. I'm better than I deserve.
Yeah,
yes,
that's Sean's thing. I'm excited about Benton being with us today, and you know, those that know me know that Benton is not only a friend and a brother, but he's my pastor. Mm-hmm. And so I'm excited about having him, here with us. We talk about a lot of things that I'm privy to in personal conversation that I want you guys to hear, those that are trying to formulate how we remain stable in this changing culture. And so there's a lot of things that we'll talk about. So please share, get somebody in. I think this next several minutes will be beneficial as we talk to Pastor Benton. First, I want to congratulate you again on the call to senior pastor of Lyons Unity, a very historic church for anybody that grew up in Northeast Houston. If you don't know nothing but a few churches, mm-hmm. Lyons Unity got to be one of the ones that great history. And so I guess to start, okay. And I told you your name has come up in my household and some personal things. I want to thank you for not just declaring some life lessons, but demonstrating them as well. So a couple months ago, our family was trying to figure out what we were going to do. Tay ran to Austin, went to UT for 4 years, but it was cool because he knew, when I graduate, I'm coming home. Mm-hmm. Came back home for brief spell, went to Memphis. Not really a move because he as soon as I finish, I'm coming back to the crib. Mm-hmm. And so, got his master's, then just started thinking about what to do next, what was for him yet, next, praying and, leading. So, I asked, he's like, Daddy, what, how would you feel if I moved to DC? What is God saying? You know what I'm saying? Of course, so praying about that, whatever, he finally, make some, I'm interested type emails and get to opportunities. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, man, that must be where, God wants you. Mm-hmm. But that's a relocation. Mm-hmm. You're a down south kid.
Yeah. Right.
You know what I'm saying? You don't know nothing about the other side of the country. Yeah. And so, even in that, I think in the process of him, making his final decisions, was when, he found out that you were going to Lyons Unity. And so, for him, it gave him encouragement, because starting over ain't easy.
No.
And it's not a decision that you just come to, overnight. So, I mean, if you would just kind of speak to, what it takes to, make that move in faith to say, hey, look, even though I've been doing something a certain way, I feel this unction of God to do something different, kind of to give some people some edge of faith of, how to move in that direction.
I think that we can start the conversation off biblically when you look at Abram's life, that he's the first one that we hear of that hears the voice of God and then moves as a result of that. We look at from the inception of the universe, and so he moves simply because God says move. And on the end of that is the promise that God is going to bless him. Right. But the blessing doesn't come until you move. Right. And so for me, the North Star of my life, heard it from another pastor, Dr. Stan Hilliard, who is a wealth of wisdom. Almost 20 years ago, he said, whatever takes the most faith is where God is leading you. And so for me, it was no faith. It would have been no faith for me to stay where I was because after being at a place for 12 years, God had blessed the people. We grown a relationship, a rapport, a bond, but I felt and sensed the hand of God moving. I didn't want to move, but it was a move of faith. And so God kept reminding me of the guiding and North Star of my life, which was whatever takes the most faith, that's where God is directing. And so I followed God, and a few months later, God has shown himself mighty and strong. So I think that's what it is.
And I guess we've seen it, our generation, we've seen it a few times, and in different arenas. But, sometimes we don't move because, we're paralyzed by fear. Instead of being pushed by faith, it takes a certain level of faith to walk into the unknown. Yeah. And so, again, thank you for not only declaring that, but demonstrating it. Like sometimes I think people learn by more than just what we say, they learn by what we do. And so, that's a lesson in and of itself. So since you're in Northeast Houston, we Northeast through and through.
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah, most definitely. Born and raised, Homestead, Mesa Road, North Wayside, that the bottoms of Northeast. And so, I mean, everything's kind of changing.
Yeah.
So, it's been said that we're living in a post-church culture, with all of that. And I think the role for the church, especially in this season, shouldn't be being shrunk. It should expand, for us to fill multiple voids. And so how do you see the church's role expanding, especially in this generation where everything is changing?
I say it all the time, that we are in probably the darkest season of American and universal history. But whenever there's darkness, that's where the light is needed.
Yeah.
And so the light has to be mobile, has to be where it's needed. And so the church now, this is our shining moment. This is the time for us to shine more than we've ever done. Now we have to do that in different ways. We cannot stay inside the building. There got to be new methods of evangelism. Thank God for this tool called the cell phone and the advent of technology. And so I think this is the best time for church. Now there are those who who've not given us the best portrait of what the church ought to be, but I think that the answer for the world, especially in our context and culture, is that the light of the church and that of Jesus. So
right, and that and again, I being Northeast, and of course, I passed on the Northeast and lived much of my life Northeast. So there's a great need for church, and I don't know if you saw it, man. I had Ken here, Dr. Campbell. Man, we were kind of chopping it up. Ken said that his he wrestles in two different areas, like his Christocentric self. And his Afrocentric self, and sometimes he has to do other things to get them to play with each other well, just to get them. And so, and I know you have that burden. We've talked, with I cannot turn off who I am socially.
No,
right. And so, and so I think there's a greater need for AfricanAmerican church in impoverished communities.
Of course.
To fill those voids and and expand, especially in this season.
Of course.
So I mean, how do you get your, because I know you have those two fighting to my
Of course. We've all been created in the image of God, and so I think that who I am and who my people are can be embraced in the light of Christianity. And so I pastored only in the inner city. So it's been an unusual, but I'm gifted for that. I like Pastor Moden, like you say, I'm hood through and through. I'm Trinity Garden. So I speak the language of that community, and I love them in a different kind of way, if that makes sense. I don't know much about the suburbs, But and so I love those people that are near me. And then, to be honest, I think that the people that we minister to in the inner city are most like the people that Jesus ministered to in his context. And so, I mean, I'm in love with it. You know, I wouldn't know what to do with the let me not get myself in trouble with the suburban church in the suburban context.
I get myself in trouble all the time.
I just wouldn't know how to navigate those waters. And I admire those fellows who do minister in the suburban context. But I just think that that I want to go where the greatest need is, and that's people that I grew up with, that that I look like me.
Yeah. Right.
So,
Speaking of the hood, because of things that have been changing over time, there was a time where you had more holiness in the hood, where church was more of a central part of life. In today's context, how do we revive holiness in the hood?
It may seem simple, but it's very complex. It is through discipleship, the same way that Jesus did it, is that we've got to get back to person discipleship, and people mirroring who they really are in Christ. This generation has zero. They give. They don't care about what you profess. It's about who you are, and they want you to be authentic about who you are. I think that what many have called holiness is not really holiness. A long skirt.
Yeah, we're not talking about dress code.
We're talking
about living the life.
About living the life.
Yes,
and
sir.
so I think that we get back to person discipleship. And I know you were raised in a different context. Me and Pastor Moten, we remember when mission would go from house to house. We'd go to Sister Johnson, Sister Millicent, Hannah, Sister. It'd be a mission circle. And so it was that kind of discipleship that grew people. And there were, the same ills that we have now. 40 years ago when me and Pastor Moten came through, there were unwed mothers, there were people who were on drugs, but they came out of a person-to-person discipleship. We can, I'm sure me and Pastor Moten can name 10 people that we have seen get off drugs, live productive lives after they have raised children. So I think that we've got to we live now in our context is we live in a garage door society. Most of us don't know our neighbors. Five of our neighbors. If I asked you, 5 of your neighbors' name. You may know the one on the right, the left, but behind other than that, you close the garage door and you finish. So
yeah. And you said, and you modified, and you do this every time we talk. You modified person-to-person discipleship.
Yeah,
and even something that small. Yeah, it changes. Yeah. Like because usually we just get like this is the model.
Yeah.
Right. And it's not that I believe it was Leroy Ames writes a book about the lost art of discipleship. Good read, but he talks about every disciple should be responsible for a disciple and responsible to a disciple.
Right. Yeah.
And that tightens that model. Right. And I think there's a lack of holiness everywhere.
Yeah.
Of course.
But expressly in our communities, because it used to be so tight. It was
right. Well, it used to be, I feel like there was, in times past, it was something more aspired to. And now it seems like there's no shame in anything. And it's not to mean that that we should not be preaching forgiveness as we do. That's not what I'm saying. But it just seems that as you reference technology, that people now see more than they've ever seen in terms of poor examples. And when they see that accepted in Hollywood, they see that accepted in, movies, television, all these different arenas. And it's like, well, so-and-so did this. and that was okay or perceived to be okay in the wider American culture. So then it's okay for me. And it seems like the church has been losing that centerpiece status that it once had in the community.
I think that we have grown silent. I don't believe that people have changed, because Solomon said there's nothing new under the sun. We've learned a new way to put out these things that would hinder our holiness. But I believe that the church has weakened our witness and silenced our witness, in that what was preaching 50 years ago is no longer
very different.
It's pep talks. It's baby, if you could touch 5 people and you can in 3 days you're gonna get it. And then also it's a lot of psychology. I mean, all of us are well versed in human speech, so I can, if I pan a room and I see there are several women with 5 kids each, it's very easy for me to go in there and negotiate their feelings and their emotions, and not preach the truth, which grows people up to a mature man, as the scripture says. And so I think that it's been a silence in the church and in the pulpit of preaching what is truth, because when people hear truth, it's going to even draw them or drive them. Right. And so, so that's.
Right. And you mentioned, I know I can't remember who I just told this to not too long ago, maybe a week or two ago. And I can't, even if I could remember, I can't remember. But, they were, it might've been, I think it was one of your members at Lyons. Okay. And I said, Pastor Ben's my pastor for life, because he's one of the most disciplined, dedicated, preachers in my generation that I know. You know what I'm saying? So like, and I know what your concentration is to preaching and making sure that the preaching moment is the spotlight.
Yes.
Where do you see preaching being the attention of the weekly parishioner? And I guess I'll qualify it this way. There are a lot of churches that are growing, but preaching is not the reason for the growth.
Now that I think that a lot of people are given to youth church, and they call it church. Okay. It's a lot of gimmicks, games, but here's the deal. If you start a circus, you have to stay a circus. And so I refuse to.
And it's got to get bigger.
It's got to get bigger. It's got to get better. It's got to, there's got to be a new headline. When in fact, Jesus is the centerpiece and I am not. And so when we start with that understanding, then we grow. Then I believe a church grows. And there's a difference between a growth and a swelling. Swelling happens when something is infected. And we've seen in the course of my short life, I've seen different churches that have swelled, and the swelling has gone down, and it's gone up, and then those same people have gone somewhere else, looking for something else.
Yeah, but, church transplants.
Yeah.
But we going to the next circus,
right?
Right. The songwriter, and I can't remember who wrote it, he said, "The world is hungry for the living bread. Lift the Savior up for him to see. Trust him and do not doubt the words that he said. I'll draw. He'll do the drawing. You preach the gospel, same gospel. Death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. It doesn't sound good, and I know I'm young, but I'm not a skinny jeans preacher, and I'll repeat that in front of anybody. Right. I said it, I meant it, and fight go with it. I'm not that. If you're looking for that, that's not gonna happen. But I'm also a principled preacher in the way that I preach and the way that I live. Not that I'm any better than anybody, but I believe that when I close my eyes, I'm going to give an account to God for what I do.
Right. So that's that growth, that preaching with old school preaching with simple, full, and free. again, we live in a generation.
Yeah.
And, we used to say it all the time. It used to be cliche. Now it's true.
Yeah.
That we'll heat to, have those itching ears.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I want to, and you can, anytime, and again, this is I always mess with, Pastor Benton, where, we dinosaurs. Like,
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
No, not at all.
Absolutely.
Not at all.
When you look at this generation,
Mm-mm.
and, so even there's some things that I'll say and I'll be like, I know they sound old school.
Yeah.
Because it really, really, like, compared to the generation, it really, really does. And this wouldn't, and I'm just mention, I know we talked about it last week, but even something as simple as baptism, communion.
Mhm.
Right.
So now we're replacing the bread and the wine with Skittles and tea. Now we're replacing immersion.
The pool with a park.
Yeah, with slides and with, like, and that's what I'm like. We're just, and you can see it. There's a downward spiral of what the standard is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If I can double back and I guess get on my red, black, and green, I believe one of the erosions of the church is that we are trying to mirror people that really don't like us.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that the last true bastion of truth, of Christianity as the Bible taught, is the black church. That's my belief, because I believe that my brothers on the other side, I pray that they repent, but they're given to the church of Donald Trump now. And there are several young pastors who are friends of mine who are Caucasian who have to feed a family, but they know the chairman of the deacon and chairman of the trustees are in Trump's pocket. And so they cannot broach the subject of truth. Wherein, and I told Canaan, and I tell the church that I pastor now, in fact, the black preacher is the freest black man in America.
Yeah.
Because I don't depend on white people to pay me.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No, for real.
A black church pays me.
Right.
And so I'm free to speak truth to power, even though my members may not be free to do that because they work in other industries that are dominated with other cultures. But for me, I am to stand, even if my voice shakes, and tell the truth, Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
No, for sure.
Right.
But like whenever you're talking about, being old school, it's like truth doesn't have an age or a stage.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
truth is truth.
It doesn't. I would just listen to Benton. He quoting a hymn.
Uh-huh.
We don't. What is it? You ask my kid, what is a hymn?
Yeah.
If you tell them, hey, name your favorite 5 hymns, I'm gonna choke you. You would probably go to jail for choking.
Yeah.
Because they just don't like. We're so far removed from.
Sure. No. I get that part. I get that part.
We're dinosaurs. I accept it. I'm good with it.
Yeah.
I get it. And I'm younger, but people would say the same thing about me.
Yeah.
Well, you're a young dinosaur.
There you go. Exactly. Youthosaurus. So, but at the end of the day, truth is truth. There is no age or stage to it, and, but you mentioned erosions, and so I wanted to ask you in terms of not just, because you mentioned, the other end of the color spectrum in terms of how they do church, but in the larger society, how can the church end ecclesiastical erosion by secular society? There's, different practices that are coming in that that churches are adopting from secular society.
One word: evangelism.
There you go.
Teaching them to observe all things, but they cannot be cleaned until they're caught.
Mm-hmm.
And so I love it. I can't change a fish plate from a fully scaled fish plate until I cut the head off.
Right.
Until I get the guts out.
Right.
Until I get Big Mama spoon and
right.
So that's the only and here is another guiding scripture, is that love is the principal thing. So we gotta win them with love. There are many who are hurting. That's why they they turn to other lifestyles and do other things because there's a lack of a love. And so that's my belief wholeheartedly. So once we start being about our Father's business, in the words of, like Pastor Moten say, I'm old school. Once we stop playing church, that's what the old preacher was saying. Time is winding up. Time is winding up for having church, for playing church. So, I'm old school.
I hear you.
It's time for start being the church.
Right.
And mission is not something we have on every fourth Saturday. It's who we are to be, we are to be day by day.
Right. So. And we have some situations where churches are I'm talking about once they are evangelized, they become a part of the church. They've confessed and they've been baptized, but over time there's certain things that seep in. The church starts turning to American marketing, systems. They start, trying to make church where when it's time to pray, the lights go down, the smoke machine starts, and the lights show. Does it make sense? That's where these things, where those that are in leadership, praise leaders, media ministry, team members, that they start adopting things from a practical and pragmatic sense, because that's what they do at the concert. So now let's do it in the church house.
So I guess that would be my question. So do those things seep in, or are they drug in? Because at this point, and I think that maybe that's the downside of just having to stream, because now you're at the end of somebody's fingertip.
Right.
And so, now it's like, okay, now I have to put on the best production possible.
Right.
Or are they going to slide to the, to the next, the next show. And that, and again, the standard for us has dropped so low. It's hard for me now to even figure out what is an influence of secular society and what is, just, and that's, and I mean, that's the sad reality of where we are. Now we're not, much like, Corinth, now we're not, the church looks like the city and not the city looking like the church. And so, and I get it, because we're modern. And, but, sometimes it's just, we can go too far.
Yeah. I think that, we're probably arguing two different things. Methods can change, but the message has to remain the same. And so, there have been changes. Now, there are some people who that's who they are, and they are over the top. And then I guess they're competing with this Netflix generation that, if you don't have the best production, then they won't come in. And there is some truth to that. You look at the happening restaurants for y'all. I say y'all young folks, young adults. Nowhere in the world am I gonna stand in a line for 2 or 3 hours for some chicken and some waffles.
Right. No.
I'm gonna go to Kroger's Sack and Save, and I'm gonna make me some biscuit, and I'm gonna make my own wings. But they are looking for an experience, and so I think that's a part of what it is, that they're looking for an experience. And that's what this generation, I mean, they don't have many stocks, many bonds, but boy, we had a good experience.
They
have things of value, but hey,
Yeah. And man, you know what? I never looked at it like that.
They're looking for an experience.
No, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Just to say I went to, Turkey Leg Hut, just to say I went to,
Breakfast Club,
Breakfast Club, right?
Yeah.
So you'll sacrifice, then So I mean, how do we change that from being those places to the church? And I think sometimes in an attempt to do that,
right,
in
an attempt to be relevant,
right,
we that sometimes there's a sacrifice of truth.
Yeah.
because it's like we're trying to stretch to extend the play,
of course,
if you will. And I think sometimes it's with good intentions, but you end up with a situation where people are trying to have an experience, and then you have to keep them the way you caught them. So
I mean, you look at, and I guess if I could jump from the Christian to the secular, and you look at the peril that millennials are in financially, but they are the number one purveyors of Gucci, Fendi, Prada. But you're looking at up the road, and I observe as I'm going on as I'm going on the Beltway, they are building apartments like they're building whole communities that are just for lease. But they are going to have Gucci and Fendi, their songs. But you said there's not much longevity to that. That's why they need the preacher. That's why they need somebody. That's why they need a watchman on the wall, because they're at the base level of the battle, and they don't see that,
right. What's to come.
There is trouble that's impending.
Right.
So,
Right.
So all of us, I would say that we could classify our churches as traditional.
Yes. Very. Yes.
So how can traditional churches stay connected without being compromised?
Love.
And connected in terms of connecting to society, in terms of the message, and also technology.
I think that, and I have tried to marry all of those, and hopefully we've had some level of success with starting from ground floor where we are now, but we're moving towards that. I think that the message can never be compromised, but it is the method, how you get it out, that changes. And then here is the number one thing. I'm trying to remember who the preacher was, but he said that he went to Sunday school in Chicago. Y'all will think of the preacher's name in Chicago, had a big, large Sunday school, but he passed several churches on an 8-mile walk. The winter of Chicago, the summer he walked. And so finally somebody asked him, why do you pass all of those other churches? He said, there's several churches that you pass on your way to this church. And his simple answer was, they know how to love a fellow over there.
Wow.
And so when people find true and authentic love, they find a home. And then there's another word that people don't use much now. They say I go to church, but I want to build a church that is a home. Our parents had a church home, through the fights, through the bickering, they didn't agree on everything. They didn't want to wear white on first Sunday. Some did. But every Sunday they came back to the same because it was home.
Right.
So,
Right. That says, like you said something earlier that I think is, is well worth pushing again. Like, this generation doesn't care what you say. They want to see, what you do. And so that's why I think we're not as connected with a certain generation. It's because we're busy, saying, we're declaring it, we're not demonstrating. So even when, believe it or not, even at one of the churches that I was at, I couldn't get them to come to church consistently. But when we had food drives, they were the first ones there helping to pass out the food, whatever, and the other things. And so, I just think there's a push of the church, and especially in this generation, to say, hey, maybe they won't come to the revival. But we need to find some things there with, they're involved. They want to be a part, so, creating avenues where they can actually, be a part, connected, doing that, not necessarily the way we want them to. We went, and truth be told, we didn't want to go.
No.
You know what I'm saying? We went because we didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
But this generation is different. Like, we've given them options. And so we just gotta, we gotta win them. And that's, that's key. So especially I will say it because this is one of my pain points. And Pastor Ben has children younger than mine, but it's hard to get. Now they both have a relationship with Jesus Christ, but it's hard to pull them out the house and get them to go to church on a Sunday morning. And so I'm just trying to find ways where, and if I have that issue, I know other, your child, 18, 19, 20, 21, not so much, daddy. It's just, Evan has a thing. I'll be like, come on, let's go to church. Is it mandatory? You're like, really? Yes. Yeah. So if I say it's mandatory, you're going to do it, but not, man, I want you to do it because you want to, but what do I need to do to make you want it? So we just got to find John Murray, who's probably my pastoring mentor, said something one time that created a lot of thought for me. John Murray said, and I guess I like the way that Sean posed the question, because John Murray told me one time, he said, hey, Moten, you can't have one thing on the marquee and another thing on the inside. And so I think some of us that pastor traditional churches need to just
be honest,
admit, this is a traditional Baptist church, because not all tradition is bad,
right?
So there's nothing wrong with being a traditional church, but don't draw me in with you're a traditional church, then I get on this, on the inside, and it's something totally different. So some of that is just and then so how do you even see, and I know just making that connection between this is who I am, this is what I'm going to do, this is who our church is, this is what we're gonna do, and not try to change because the church down the street is more modern.
It's we are in the feeding business. So there is an Indian restaurant up the street, there is a fast food, there's a taco stand, and so we are who we are. And so this is who I and to be honest, as a preacher, the greatest preacher that God can make you is to be authentic to who you are. And so I know who I am. I've preached in several different places, and so I just knew that this is who I am. I'm gonna raise my voice. I'm gonna get loud. I'm gonna holler. That's who I am. I want to make reference to matter of fact. Let's start with this, because this is now non-traditional in preaching. I use the Bible.
Right.
Whatever version. Right. iPad, but I use the Bible. And then I'm just amazed. And I sit with these younger. I don't even know if they're qualified to be called preachers. I call them motivation speakers. And I just sit there and I just marvel at them because they have so much to say. And I'm like, wow, I didn't know that. And then half of their facts are not facts, and other, and I'm like, this, I could really give me some popcorn and just fix my life, like Oprah and Dr. Phil. But I use the Bible. I preach from the Bible, and so if that's too. And then here is another thing. Now we say that for the church, and here is an indictment that I have. And Imam has been doing the same thing. They've been wearing the same thing for years. The women are on one side, the men are on the other. But when it comes to Christianity, I've got to modernize. Financially, they're doing much better than the Black Baptist Church.
Right.
If we're honest. And nothing has changed with their worship. They've gotten new buildings. They've gotten lights. But the way that they worship, the way that they present, what they teach is the same. The Catholic Church has not changed or modernized. The numbers have probably gone down, which we know in England, nobody goes to church because that's the way it is, and what happens over there is happening over here. And so I'm committed to be who I am. I'm gonna preach the Bible. I'm going to stand on conviction. I'm gonna love people. I'm going to emphasize fellowship, love, and God's grace. And so that's just who I am. Matter of fact, I think I told you, Pastor Moten, I applaud these other fellas that are doing this other thing. No hate, but in a world where there are a lot of young thugs and I want to be Frankie Beverly.
Right.
That's who I am.
Right.
Every Sunday, you know what I'm?
Yeah.
Joy and pain.
Right.
Like sunshine and rain. I'm going to put on my white with my white hat.
Yeah.
And people are going to come.
Yeah.
Because he did die.
Right.
But that's not the conclusion of the story.
That's right.
Yeah.
Early Sunday, he got up.
Right.
So,
and that's because people go.
Yeah.
And you mentioned Frankie Beverly. That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Because people go to Frankie Beverly's concerts.
Yeah.
To sing.
Yeah.
His song.
Yeah.
Because they know exactly what he's not, and he hasn't changed or added to him in years. And I think there's just this push from the world for us to be different. And I think sometimes we'll go with it. Yeah. And try to, modernize when it's just like, hey, look, we sell Big Macs here. That's
what I now we're gonna put a new uniform. We'll have something for the children. But no, I mean, matter of fact, talking about Frankie Beverly, a family friend was saying, I was asking were they going to the Emancipation Day. They said, no, I'm not going for me to sing to him. In fact, that's what it is.
That's what it is.
That's what it is. So and I've always been. I mean, since the day we met, I've always been encouraged. Ben always had something, something good to say to galvanize the mind of the young preacher. So if you had a young preacher who was just looking to be the best version of himself, like what piece of advice would you give him first?
Man, the first thing, love God, like really love God. Make preaching not a performative thing. Let it be a part of your life, because the best sermons come as an outflow of your life. And I don't mean in terms of being perfect. I mean be honest with God about who you are, where you are, and I am. God will take you. He'll take you far. So love God with your whole being. Love Him with everything, and He'll take care of you. The late Pastor Dixon on Whipwreck, he told me something. I was preaching one of the preaching balls. It had to be maybe, I guess, about 23 years ago. And he said, young man, he said, stay with the Lord. Only a young preacher. He's about 75, 80 then. He said, young man, preaching has taken me all over the world. It's taking care of my family. And man, I can testify that 23 years later that God has, He's been faithful to me, because I pull no punches. I loved Him with everything. And so, love Him, and the preaching will flow out of that, it'll flow out of that. Yeah. So love God.
Yeah. So this is a private public moment, because I've had a bunch of these, and I ask almost every preacher that I look at as a model, preacher, the same thing, because I believe, especially in preaching, more is caught than taught. So I would ask any young preacher, like, who are you listening to? Because whoever you listen to, you're gonna end up sounding just like that. So, like, as a young preacher coming up, like, who did you listen to?
As a young preacher, of course, Jasper Williams. That was one of them. Leo Daniels. The crown jewel of not only Houston preachers but American preachers. Dr. Ralph West, Gardner Taylor. Man, and I have had I've had the opportunity, Dr. A. Lewis Patterson, of meeting these great minds, Caesar Clark, Jerry Black, now Bishop J.D. Wiley in New Orleans. Just a plethora of great preachers. My grandfather was a pastor, Franklin Laverne. My personal mentor, Pastor Lloyd Scott. He recently retired in Port Arthur, the Eastern Star Church. He was I bust into tears. He is the one who put his hand on me and molded my preaching and made sure that I was serious about the craft, that I cared about the craft. I mean, he took me and drugged me to conferences all over the nation. And man, I am who I am because of him. And I owe him a debt of gratitude because, man, he is serious about preaching. Every week, we had a discipline. When he preached, I was his, his research assistant. Mm-hmm. So whatever he was preaching, he'd have me researching it about it. And so even when I was not pastoring, one of his assignments for me was that I was to craft a sermon every week. Wow. And so he would, on Monday, what passage are you preaching? So that's been driven into me for 23 years. So even when I don't have a physical book, I'm writing in my notes. Now, when I was young in my marriage, my wife thought I was texting, and she said, "Baby, I'm doing notes. It's the Bible. I'm working with the Lord."
I'm texting the Lord.
I'm texting the Lord, and so those have been those mentors. Dr. E.K. Bailey, just so many. Dr. R.A. Williams. I mean, just so many great preachers. There's just so many. I mean, I can't. It's time would escape me.
You threw out enough names. And that, and that's why I guess especially in this generation, I don't know. And I have to let you listen to it. A couple weeks ago, man, I was just flabbergasted. I was blown away, in tears on a Sunday morning. I had taken some weeks off this month, just really trying to recharge the battery. I'm stopped before I quit. You that kind of needed a couple weeks or whatever. And so I'm like letting some of the sons of the church preach, whatever. Ricardo Marshall, 26, man. Ricardo preached the place apart. I'm sitting there the whole time he's preaching in tears. Because I see, I see myself, like, you know what I'm saying? And I'm like, you start feeling like that. Now I'm the old guy. Like, whatever. But I'm like, this new generation or young generation of preachers, it's like, if we don't pour into them, like, sometimes I get mad, and I'm saying mad, just frustrated, when I start naming names that other young preachers don't know. And so sometimes there's that frustration of, he didn't leave anything on print. He didn't leave, any CDs, whatever. And it's like, I don't want to be that guy. Whatever God has given me, I want to leave some behind for the next generation to, carry. So some of the names you named, a lot of young preachers, you start talking about the Manuel Scotts and Caesar Claus, they're like, who?
Oh, man.
And it's like, how do you not know
these
stalwarts of, or even
Dr. Miles Jones.
Even here in Houston, the O.C. Johnson,
and
the L.V. Adams, like, you know what I'm saying, like those Herbert Stroman, one turned 92 today, S.A. Smith.
Samson.
That
Bishop A.C. Nelson.
A.C. Nelson was, yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So those are names that, unfortunately, they didn't leave anything in print, or maybe didn't leave any CDs, and so now if it's not on YouTube, it doesn't exist.
So, I don't know. I'm praying for the preaching, for this generation of preaching, because me and Pastor, we were blessed to, I guess, catch the tail end of the great preachers of yesterday. Where you just sit and you say, man, if that's preaching, I don't know what I've been doing. What I've been doing. And even mention the Sampson brothers, FD and Asa Sampson. Those.
Reuben.
Yeah.
And the first time I heard Jasper Williams, he was behind the microphone with a handkerchief that looked like a sheet. With no Bible. And just, and it's, I'm like, just no Bible, no note. He's just a microphone. And so and he was walking through this passage. And he was walking through this passage, and it's like, man, I'm like, what have I been doing?
Yeah.
Right.
But those that are careful, they'll come to find out.
Yeah.
Because I remember when I first started preaching, and I didn't know a lot of those names.
Yeah.
But then as I continued in my education, continued in my research, I started to uncover these resources, and I got familiar with them.
I mean, a couple more. Since y'all mentioning name, my pastor, James Worland Glenn at St. Mark, his brother, Dr. William Timothy Glenn. Man, I was wrestling with the call to ministry. This is a short story. I was at the prayer bowl. If you're from Houston, you know the prayer bowl at what's the name of the church, Mo?
Jackson.
Dr. C.L. Jackson. And man, I was wrestling with the call to preach. I was very young. I'm like, Lord, I do not want to be no preacher. But Dr. Tim Glenn preached a sermon, and I never will forget. It was on New Year's Day of 1998. Psalm 34:1. I bless the Lord at all times. He talked about from a solo to a symphony. And Doc, it was there. I said, Lord, if you could use a preacher like that, then Lord, I'll go. And Doc, I yielded. Doc, he said, oh, magnify the Lord with me, Doc. It goes from the solo
to the symphony. See, those are me, and I think, and I don't,
Pleasant Grove,
yeah.
And I don't, those moments in preaching, there have been a couple times where I've just, we hit the highway like, let's go. And there are a couple moments where you're like this is, and I know, a lot of preachers have never been in that moment. You're like, you're listening to somebody going, this is unbelievable.
Yeah.
One year we went to Rudy White's, and Ralph preached, Dr. West preached. I can't remember the name of the sermon, but he started with the illustration of the Elephant Man, and and I was like, okay, that's incredible. That's the greatest sermon I've ever heard in my life. And then right behind him, R.A. Williams or somebody got up, and I'm like, okay, you know what? That was the greatest sermon I ever heard in my life. And my idea of the greatest sermon changed about 3 or 4 times. McLean was there that night, and I was like, okay, that's the greatest sermon. Bishop Dixon, but I'm like, okay, this is all in one sitting, like some of the greatest preachers I'd ever heard. And it's like, and again for us, and I'm looking at preaching as pastoral assignment. And Dr. Campbell says it, best. A good sermon ought to make you say, what shall I do? It ought to make you want to do something. And so anytime that maybe that's why for me the preaching moment is so serious. It's because if I miss that, someone misses their what shall I do moment. And I can't, so, for me, I'm like, and I think you asked at one point, like, man, hey, young preacher, what would you do? Man, who you listening to? And for me, I listen to
Tony Evans. I'm keep going down my list.
You started to think like
Dr. Adrian Rogers.
Oh yeah, Adrian Rogers is my go-to.
Man. The alliteration king.
Stephen Olford.
Now he's the alliteration king. Stephen Olford.
And I didn't even know the connection between Stephen Olford and Adrian Rogers until I went to the Stephen Olford Institute. They were like, Adrian Rogers was really Stephen Olford's understudy. And just took it and ran with it. So of course I knew Adrian Rogers, like, he's a alliteration king, but then you hear Stephen Olford, you're like, okay, no, he has it. And then we hear Dr. Patterson. And and we were in a city, fortunately, grew up in a city where
we could drive and
it was like first Sunday night, we going to Dr. Pat's. That's the green carpet. That's easy. Or second Sunday we were going to Pastor Stroman's, or like we lived in a city where it was all around us, and so especially guys that are in Houston, and I don't know other cities have those, but guys that are in Houston, man, we had those opportunities to hear them, and so because I believe every good sermon you hear makes you better. It makes you it should make you a better preacher. And so again I ask every preacher that I admire. Hey, who did you grow up listening to?
Mm-hmm.
On the hopes that there's a name or two that'll be said that I don't, I don't know about. So again, I don't.
Dr. Sammy Rash.
Sammy Rash. He came to Houston. I was gonna find where he was going. I was, it wasn't often, but it was, much like Jasper Williams. Whenever he came, it's like,
same.
The whole city gonna be there. Again, so any young preacher, man, it's more is caught than taught. Make sure you're hearing what you want.
My mentor, Dr. Lloyd Scott, always says, he said, it's preaching laying around. Just look. It's always preaching laying around.
Yeah. All right, so I'm, because Lyons Unity is one of those historical hubs for solid preaching. And I got a chance a couple weeks ago, and they start, much earlier than we do. So 8:00 in the morning. So I get up, get dressed. I'm like, man, I'm going to hear Benton. Got to the church, sit in the balcony, a passage I've preached before. Just the way, Benton approached the passage and dealt with it. I was like, this makes no sense. But to see the atmosphere and the, the church and the membership and, and I know the sky's the limit. Do you have anything specific planned for the church? You just...
Right now, we rejoice. We rejoice. And the installation is the 5th Sunday in July, the 31st. So that morning and that evening. So just excited. They're excited for a fresh start. I'm loving them. And then we have a love story. My grandmother was a longtime member. My dad was a longtime member. And then I became the youth pastor and then the assistant pastor. Went to Canaan for 12 years and then came back home. So I guess like Puffy, I'm coming home. I'm coming home. So
that Sunday morning was amazing.
Yeah, honored.
I'm to hear people enjoying the preaching moment. 8:00 on a Sunday morning. I'm like, because I would still be getting the sleep out my eye, but they was enjoying that moment. I was like, this is it.
It is. I love it. And my former church was the same way. It was a holy valley. It is the beautiful picture of what black preaching is. We are in concert. You say in the beginning, they God. Put on my cleats. It's time. It's time. Let's go. Let's go.
And I love the call and response of the church. I went to a service with a friend of mine. Matter of fact, we were in seminary together. And his pastor was, he was dealing with the passage, and nobody was saying anything. And so at some point, he made a statement. I'm like, Everybody turned around and looked at me. I said, hey, man, we talk.
We talk.
Right.
We talk. He talking to me. I'm talking back to him.
Right.
That call and response is, that's key. For us. I'm excited for you and what you have going. Let me hit you with this, and then we'll wrap up, because there's another area where you're like just not declaring it but demonstrating it. And so there's a tightness in our community as far as family units. How we deal with family, and Pastor Benton is we've had an opportunity to hang as family and go out together. So if you see Pastor, you're gonna see Sister Benton not too far behind. If it's if it's family time, you're gonna see Dylan and Delaney not too far behind. So just kind of speak to the importance of Black family in the Black culture, especially in this generation.
I'll throw out some numbers. The number one indicator of failed children is broken homes and broken families. And so I didn't want to be that financially. That's the number one indicator. If you want to see some impoverished children, they're led by a one parent, and that's no knock, 'cause my mother wasn't, but so I believe the strength of the Black family helps. The strength of the family leads the Black community, and so I think that's a great need. And then for most preachers, I think that our lives ought to be examples of what Christianity is. And so my first ministry is to my family. I don't want them to say, I don't want them to love other things, or don't let me. I don't want to love the church more than I love my family, and so because at the end of the day, they're going to be with me, whether the church loves me or not, and so I make a concerted effort to make an emphasis on that. And so even if you're good to your wife and your children, they'll be good to you. And so I like to be comfortable.
There you go.
See, waiting to get down and kids leave.
What's that passage that your dad and our grandparents said, better to be on a hot tin roof than to be
under the
roof. Yeah.
I don't want to be on the roof.
Don't do it.
I didn't learn that in Bible school. I learned that from old Black men. Matter of fact, I don't even know where to find it in the Bible. I know it's in there. I heard the Black men say that enough. The deacons say that enough.
That's key, especially in our generation. And so that's another reason why, I love my pastor, because we can,
keep it real.
Yeah, and we can talk. Whether there's a challenge at the church, a challenge in, preaching, preparation, or a challenge.
Marriage and family.
Yeah, marriage and family, whatever the challenge is, I know he's going to be able to, say something and address it. And so that's a key thing. And since we're on the subject, I encourage every preacher, find you a covering, a pastor who's not just going to be pastor namesake,
right?
But somebody you can actually pick up your phone and call, and they'll answer you back. And I know a friend of mine just told me he was under Noel Jones's covering, and I'm like, how that's gonna work out,
right?
And not Noel Jones, one of the great preachers of our day, but
of course,
he's miles and miles and miles away, and a very, very busy, a very busy man. And so again, find you a pastor who has some connection that cares about you. And so happy to have, my pastor is, Pastor, Benton. So, so again, Ben, you got anything else coming up? And you said the installation, and we're going to tag that in our, so if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, you'll see it at the bottom of the description. You have anything else coming up?
No, not per se, just trying to get our legs under us. So that's
Sean, y'all got anything else coming up? I know I saw the video from Church Anniversary. Reverend Franz Brown
came and preached.
Which
he did.
I need to send him a text message too about doing people's building like that without leaving a deductible.
I'm just gonna start going in front of him selling pulpit insurance, man. He out there wrecking them pulpits,
Yeah, he did that.
Yeah, he blessed us.
Yeah. Anything else that coming up at the church?
Not, we just came off the high of our 63rd church anniversary. So ordinary, services.
Back to regular scheduled program.
Yeah, in terms of the month of July. Yeah. So
there's no community events that are going on right now. No, by the time this airs, we will know specifics. So if we have them, I will forward them. But there our city lost a great friend, a great brother, another pastor, Pastor Mouton, who was killed in a violent act. And so let's pray for that family, the Mouton family. Let's pray for East Bethel church family as they mourn the loss of their leader. And then let's pray for our city, man. These are bad times, man. And it's just, I really on my way here, somebody cut me off. And I started to cut my eyes at him, and I said, "No, let me just chill. We're just living in bad times, man. Yeah. We're living in bad times." And so, let's pray for that family, that church family, and then look out for each other, to do our part. And then again, if you live in Houston anywhere, and you can't get to Good Shepherd or get to New Life, definitely. Go by the Lyons Unity Missionary Baptist Church on Sundays at 8 a.m. On Lyons, right there off of 59.
In the shadows of downtown. in the hamlet of Fifth
Ward. A great church. It'd be great, singing and praying and reading of the scripture, but there'll be some great preaching. So again, thank you, Pastor Ben, for being with us today.
Thank both of you guys. I count this a signal honor. Thank y'all. Thank y'all.
Thank you for coming, man.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for joining us.
I can go design my headstone.
Thank you for being with us, and hopefully this won't be the last time when something definitely in the community arises. He's one of those voices that that I lean on. And so the next time he's here, we'll talk about some community stuff.
Yeah, regentrification. We're fighting all of those different things. And so getting our footing in the community. And so, trying to
trying to solidify. We'll talk about some other stuff, and then some national stuff. I know time is spent. I didn't get a chance to. Did you see John Cornyn's tweet?
I did.
Yeah. So
it's obvious that you don't have to be a well-versed lawyer to be in Congress nowadays. But we'll leave that for the next episode.
Next episode we'll address it. Did you hear Pastor Jeffrey's comments?
Jeffress?
Dallas.
In Dallas? Yeah. No, I hadn't.
First Baptist,
yeah. Did you hear him?
I know of him, but I haven't heard any recent comments. So I'll have to look that up.
President Trump on the reversal of Roe versus Wade, and made some other comments about.
Oh, I'll surely be researching this.
Yeah, his presidency, and hopefully he made his last comment was the return of President Trump. So we'll discuss that next week.
I can't wait.
Yeah.
I can't wait.
Again, I want to thank Pastor Benton for being with us today, man. Thank you guys for watching and being a part. Definitely share and like, subscribe, shoot it at friends as we're trying to bring some truth to this generation. We can fix where we are when we can face where we are, and so we want to speak truth to us, and so in ways that hasn't been discussed before, as we try to push and let the truth be told.
Truth be told.
Man, thank you guys for joining us, man. Until next time, grace and peace, and we'll see you guys next week.